She doesn't see any. No pressure, guys. A little bit of pressure.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yes.
This is Andrea. I'm
Yes.
trying to, and my camera is not turning on for some reason, but I was going to say that I am, I'm used to working online because I'm a graduate student.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing is that I guess whenever I was looking at the pre-work in the chapter, I didn't realize that we needed to that we were going to turn it in online too. Like it was two things. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, like I was rushing to kind of turn in some of my responses today because I had done most of the work earlier in the week. So, but I had written it in the book. So I was like, that was the only thing, I guess, for me, really. But I thought it was good. And I thought the case studies were really good and really interesting and very, very hard. Like I had to really think about what I would do and how I would react and what the appropriate thing was.
I know some of the questions are really hard, and they're designed to be, because we want to make you think, we want to make us think, and I speak for myself, but I think I can pretty assuredly speak for the rest of the staff, and that we learn something every time we talk about things like the dilemmas and the family strengths and weaknesses. So we're right there with you, Andrea. I'm sorry you had to do the work twice. If that comes up for anybody else, please don't feel like you need to double up on the work just to get it in one mode that we've requested. If you find that you did all that hard work writing out the dilemmas, don't feel like you have to type it. You can just take pictures and send them in to us, and we can work through it that way. So we don't want to, we know we are asking a lot of you already. We don't want to make it any harder than it needs to be. So and I don't think I saw any other raised hands. Did we? Since one person responded. Oh, Allie.
I felt like with all of the dilemmas that my answer was the same for all of them. Like report it, report it, report it, report it. And then there were a couple, like the Olive Garden one.
Mm-hmm.
I felt pretty confident that you can't go pick up the child from the residential facility and take her to Olive Garden. But then I was thinking, like, kind of like outside the box, would it have been appropriate to have brought Olive Garden to her? But then I don't know. I didn't feel like I really knew what the right answer would be for that situation.
Well, two things on that. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started on the dilemmas. So if you hand wrote them, you can pull them out. If you had them on Canvas, you can minimize us, make us tiny in the corner of your screen and pull yours up, or we can just speak really loosely about it. I'm not hopefully going to have to call on any of you guys. Hopefully you'll share with me like Allie did. But first of all, you're exactly right, Allie. The right answer is always, I'm going to ask my supervisor. That's always a safe answer. If any dilemma comes up for you, I'm going to ask my CASA supervisor is always, always, always a great answer. And thinking out of the box too is wonderful. And on that particular one, Olive Garden, that's a great solution to a problem that you think you can't overcome. You want to do something special for her birthday. You don't know if you can do it. Thinking outside the box is always a great option for that. We will go ahead and go back to the first dilemma, which if you remember from the dilemmas, or if you have it in front of you. Oh, Amy, did you need to jump in and say something?
I just wondered, so would it be okay to pick up the spaghetti? Because it seems to me I don't know that I would do that.
That's a dilemma. Okay, that's the dilemma, and everything that we do is so very case specific, but it just depends. I know we've had in past trainings, we've had people say, well, you can't pick up Olive Garden for one kid in a group home and they share a room with 6 other kids. Like, that's not fair. That's not going to go over well. They're not going to make friends that way. And that's something to consider too. Depending on the placement, whether they can leave or not is another thing to consider. Some CASA programs do not allow any transportation at all. And I know in a couple of the dilemmas that came up, and those were great answers for you guys. But we've actually worked it out where as long as we sign an agreement where the CASA agrees on the responsibility of, following all the traffic laws and wearing a seatbelt and all of those things, and their supervisor, our executive director, and the child's guardian all agree, then we can do transportation with the child. Now that is very case specific. It's a case by case basis, and it's every time you do it, we have to get the paperwork signed. But it is an option. So for here at CASA of Ohio Valley, we do have the opportunity in many cases to transport children and take them out for their birthday for a special dinner. Now, of course, in the time of COVID, that's a completely different issue. Is it safe? Is that a responsibility that you want to take on? Right now, we're not allowing CASAs to do any face-to-face visits as representing CASA. So that presents another problem. Again, that's why they're dilemmas. They're supposed to make you think, they're supposed to make us think, and there's not always a really clear-cut black and white answer. So back to number one, the little girl whose name I've forgotten, but we have a little girl who's just had some dental work done, and Grandpa has asked you to pick up medicine. Would anyone like to? I have a couple of people whose answers I really want to talk about, but I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to jump in and either ask questions or share what you think we should do in this case.
I answered on that when I rose my hand. You know, basically, I just know in any state, but also just through work, just like in the school setting, this falls under, even picking up the prescription would fall under administering medication to a child, to a minor. That can only be done by a medical professional or certainly the guardian. So that would certainly be a no or a don't.
Right, that is the right answer. And there are all kinds of reasons that we wouldn't want to do that. Now, I completely identify and sympathize with anyone who wants to take the child medicine because we are helpers. You guys are all here because you want to help. So when someone calls you and they need help, especially with something so easy, of course you can run through the drive-thru at CVS or wherever and pick up that prescription and have it to them in just a few minutes. But we don't want to do that for many reasons. Things that we've had come up in trainings before, just the liability for the advocate when, you know, I think maybe it was you, Peter, who mentioned that it could be a narcotic. Someone mentioned that in their response. It could potentially be a narcotic, and then you have this whole other host of issues. What if you get pulled over? And what if Grandpa says that you were supposed to have 30 pills and you only brought him 27? What if Grandpa says that you never brought it at all? So there are a whole host of issues. Another thing is really staying child focused. And while this would definitely help the child to have their medication, it's also not something that we want to start taking responsibility for. We don't want to start a situation where we feel that, or the family feels that we're responsible for making sure that they have medication. So that one is a pretty hard no, that we wouldn't want to do that. I loved that a few people mentioned in their response that a great alternative would be what? Does anybody want to share what a way that we could help Grandpa is without taking him the medicine? Nobody? It was either Peter or Sarah. It was in your response. I don't remember which one of you it was.
Was it picking up the milkshake that might help with the pain?
That's great too. But that wasn't specifically what I was looking for. I'm looking down at my paper because.
We could maybe look for different resources within the community. I know a lot of pharmacies offer delivery service.
Yay, thank you, Robin. That's exactly what I was looking for. One of you guys put that in your response. I thought it was either Peter or Sarah. It might still be one of you guys. But that's a great too, to do that, think outside the box and come up with a different solution. Grandpa needs the medication, understand that completely. He's not able to go get it. What resources in the community can we rely on to get that medicine to him? Awesome. Thank you guys for that response and for the little brief discussion. We're going to do one more so we stay on track tonight. And I forget the number of the dilemma. I want maybe Robin or Alondra to help me out with what number it is. It might be number 2, the one where you see mom and her boyfriend in the parking lot. Number 2, yeah, Robin's showing us number 2. Number 2, so you are out and you see mom and her boyfriend in the parking lot. What next? What do you do? Who wants to share either what they put or what you think or any questions that you have for this dilemma?
I'll go ahead and go. I said, obviously we need to report it in our report that we saw them. I mean, it's hard coming from an ex-police officer to, distinguish what I can and can't do. But obviously to report it, I wouldn't want to make a visit to their house unannounced.
Mhm.
And so that would be, I think, a bad decision. But just make a report. And also, I think I put on my answer to maybe get with the social worker I'm assuming that a social worker is involved in this case and get with them and explain to them, that there's probably, there's a possibility that there's some things going on with the boyfriend and the child, and get them involved too.
I think that's a great response. And I know I'm glad you did add something there because of your police background. I know a lot of us, our inclination is like to go like guns blazing in there. Like we got to take this, get this all taken care of, make sure that we know what's going on. And we do need to know what's going on, but we want to be really careful about it. So I think many people want to do an unannounced home visit. And while it's completely within the scope of what CASA does to make an unannounced home visit, we can definitely make unannounced home visits. We do not want the family to feel like we're in the practice of trying to catch them doing something wrong all the time. So I think in this scenario, it's not a good idea to do that surprise visit. What are some other options that we might do instead? Nobody?
Just
I
call
think in my response, I just tried to, I think I would want to go and speak with, the kiddo to see if they had any behavior changes or just see how they were doing, just in general, to make sure they were safe. I mean, I would, but not step over the boundary of just showing up, of course, but just trying to make an appointment, at least attempting to make an appointment, with them to kind of discuss it and kind of remind mom, like, this was part of your agreement, to your court order, how do you think this is going to be perceived by the court?
Sure, I think that's great too. So thank you guys for discussing the dilemmas with us. If you have any more questions that come up, you can throw those in the chat box. But to stay on track today, we do want to move on, and I'm going to ask Alondra to jump up and talk a little bit with you guys about the removed video.
Hi guys, I hope you guys are doing good today. Okay, we are going, I think that's our next slide. Rosemary, if you will do me a favor and just push the space bar, and we will see the removed video. Did everybody get a chance tonight or during the week to watch this video? Yes. Okay, what is some thoughts that you guys had about this? What did you guys think about the video? Was it difficult to watch?
It was difficult to watch. It was sad and heartbreaking. And I think at the end, it just showed you all the emotions, that child's gone through and how they broke that child. That child was broke down by all the people that, that she's supposed to be able to trust in her life. And then in the end, it kind of showed how she started to regain some hope and was, going through starting a recovery process, which I thought was really nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great feedback. You were able to see in the video, how she was removed from her family. And what are your thoughts about when she had to put her little brother into that car and be separated from him?
Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part of that video. And she has just a true fear in her eyes. It's really heartbreaking to see that.
And that's very important for us to keep in mind when working with our families. Some of our families and some of the children that we serve do have siblings. And sometimes they feel that protective factor and that they feel like they need to protect their siblings because their siblings look up to them. Sometimes they're the ones that do make sure that their siblings have food on the table, and they're the ones that take care of them.
I wanted to jump in because we did read a lot of the discussion that you guys had, and something that Terry, I believe, put in the discussion is, like, I wish I had known not to watch this at work because I would cry. And we do want to remind you guys of the feelings thermometer, and I bring that up because although I have watched this video, it feels like 100 times. I have been the facilitator of this training, I think, like 6 times, and we show it in each training, and every single time when we get to that point, when she puts her little brother in the car, I cannot hold it together. I was talking to Alondra about it earlier today and teared up. So it tears me apart. But we want you guys to always know that if you can only watch half of the video because you're too upset, turn it off. Like, we're not gonna like dock points from you. So we got Shy here with a question. I'll text you, Shy. Make sure you got it. But I won't text you, but I'll tell everybody. Does everybody know how to raise their hand on here? Like, not your actual hand?
I was just going to say, I'm on my phone this time because my son's at football practice, and I don't know where on my phone is the hand raise. But about that video, I was going to say, he actually heard me watching it, and he's my more sensitive child anyway, so I don't know if he was supposed to or not, but he actually sat and watched it with me. And it tore him up. And I said, Logan, that is why you have no idea some kids that you go to school with that may act out or may seem dirty or may seem different or whatever. You have no idea what their home life could be like. And I hope that puts that into perspective for him too.
I think that's a great learning opportunity, and thank you for sharing that. I had hoped that you would let us know how he responded. You mentioned it too, so I wondered, because doing the job that we do, I know our kids are sometimes like, what do you actually do at work? What do you actually do? And explaining it to them can be really difficult because these are really difficult topics. And so the remove video, I don't know if there's a right answer to yes or no, whether you should have. But we want you to know that there's a part 2. So when you watch part 2, we do want you to watch it with him so he gets the resolution piece of this. I'll give it back to Alondra now. I just wanted to butt in and say, don't forget about the feelings thermometer when we're doing hard things.
Thank you, Ashley. If you guys remember where that's located in your portfolio, the blue one, just always remember you guys can come back to this and make sure you keep your feelings in mind. If you need to mute and turn off your webcam for a minute, that's completely understandable. I know we had a question from Allie. It was, is it normal, or is it if there's 2 siblings in the home, is it common for just one child from the sibling set to be removed from the home? And I will give that one to Ashley. She has a little bit more experience with that.
I can answer that. I think any of us that have, fortunately or unfortunately, had experience in this realm could answer the same way. I think Susan could say, Robin, who's been here for several years too, that we can tell you what happens most of the time. We can tell you what happens sometimes. We can tell you what we see a lot, but there's not really any normal or not normal. So if the cabinet is placing, if social services, they go by a lot of names, DCBS, the cabinet, social services, any of those things when we talk about the cabinet. But when they remove kids, it is their listed goal and one of their standards that they place children together if it is at all possible. That does not mean that it is always possible, or that it's even most of the time possible. So unfortunately, that is something that we do see. We see that often. We also see often that children have different levels of needs. And that may have been the case in this video. So you see little brother is a sweet little blonde toddler. Usually those are a little bit easier. I know those of us with toddlers are like not that much easier, but easier to take care of than a preteen or teenager with behavior problems and anger who has experienced all of this trauma in her life. So it might be that she needs a little bit higher level of care than that cuddly little toddler does. It might be that they couldn't find a home. It might be that there weren't placements available that night in the middle of the night when the kids got removed. We see all of those things as options. So I can't say whether it's normal or not normal because there is no normal. I will say that it is a standard of the cabinet. They place them together if they can, but that often they cannot, either because of placement restrictions or needs of the child. We often also see, unfortunately, I'll add to that, that children are placed together initially and then have to be separated because of, again, that level of need. The home is able to meet one of the children's needs, but not the other child's. One of the children ends up in a residential placement. They need long-term care. They need more mental health support, or they have even a physical disability that they need. They act out. One of them doesn't get along. A whole host of issues. But unfortunately, we do see more often than we would like that siblings get separated. Susan, would you like to add anything to that from your experience?
I was just going to say, it is the norm to try to keep the children together. I currently have a case that has five kids involved in the case, and all 5 were removed and placed in 4 different homes, just to give you an example. So that was, and that was a case where it didn't work out for them. So it's not always, but yes, it is the goal. But there are many times it just can't, as Ashley was saying, it just can't be done. So.
All right, thank you, Susan. Amy has a question.
I guess it's a question or a comment more. It was very realistic to me that this child crammed all of her things into a plastic garbage bag to take with her, because so often it happens quickly and families don't have little suitcases for their kids. So, you know, all of her belongings were in a garbage bag. And then when she's moved from home to home, it gets harder and harder for her to attach.
Right.
And
I can tell you, Amy, just from all the years I've been at the DCBS office prior to coming here, it's only in the past, say, 5 years that the cabinet is really, the cabinet and all the other community resources have really made an effort to stop that from happening, because that was very common practice, and it wasn't even, and I don't think anyone ever even took the time to realize how that made the child feel. But putting their things in a black garbage bag was very common, and those kids would just pack up their black garbage bag every time they moved and go from home to home. So in the last 5 years, there's been a huge push to get donations, and I know they have a room over there at DCBS right now that's just packed full of suitcases, and they try very hard. CASA has also worked very hard and diligently to get some supplies like that together, and we have backpacks and duffel bags and things available too. So we're trying here locally, at least, to, and I say that locally, on a state level, I know we're trying to stop that garbage bag look, as degrading as it is to even say. But it was very common up until, you know, the last 5 to 6 years, sadly.
And I think, like you said, it is it is a really nice depiction of what happens. Unfortunately, it is. Mm-hmm. And in this case, I think Nathan could probably speak to that too, that occasionally the police get called out. It's the middle of the night and the kids get removed. Mom and dad, stepdad, both go to jail. Who is there to pack the bag? You know, we don't have our suitcases at my house sitting out conveniently in the kitchen for the police and random social worker to know where to get them. They're in the attic. My kids probably don't even know that. So even if they had suitcases in their home, chances are they couldn't find them. And these situations are not always really nice and lined up where everyone has advance notice and they can prepare really nicely for a child to pack. So it's not always the case that mom and dad get to pack their favorite teddy bear and a blanket. It's somebody grabbing clothes and saying, like, we got to go. We got a placement. We got to go. I think Susan is exactly right, though, that we are trying to do better. We're trying to do better as a community, as a state. I think as a society in general, we're trying to do better by these kids. Great observation, Amy. Anything else anybody would like to discuss from the video?
The thing that really got to me was when the little girl was given the dress, and it's like she had that flashback to when her dad was arguing with her mom about that dress. And I guess I hadn't realized that could be like a factor, like a flashback as being a factor into a child's behavior.
I think that's why we love this video. It shows such a wide range of what the child experiences and what foster parents, what CASAs, what the court can expect to be happening behind the scenes for the child. That does happen. Maybe not always as violently. Maybe it looks like the child doing really poorly in school, or the child used to be potty trained and they're not anymore. And we'll talk about that quite a bit later tonight after the break. But it is common for something to set the child off. Sometimes it's a visit with mom. Sometimes it's mom didn't show up for a visit and we're supposed to have them on Tuesday. Sometimes it is a lovely dress that reminds them of something else, or passing by their favorite restaurant that they used to eat at with their parents but never get to go to anymore. It could be so many things. And I think if we, because those are being brought to our mind, we can think about those instances in our own life too, where a song on the radio takes us back to a really great memory or a really terrible one. And we act out maybe more appropriately because we're adults, maybe not because we haven't dealt with all of our own issues either. So I think that's a great point too, Sarah. Anybody else? Questions or thoughts about removed?
I just wanted to say that I think this video depicts child psychology really well. Like you can see a range of emotions in the psychology that's like going on in her head, from like defeat to anger to behavioral issues and PTSD and triggers with the PTSD. Yeah, it does a great job at that.
I think so too. I couldn't, and again, that's why we love it. I forget now who made the video. I should give them tons of credit every time because we do use it so often, because it shows such a wide range of what we work with CASAs, not just with the police or with social workers or with foster parents, but also with the wide range of children. We'll get to see a little bit more about that too, a little bit more about mom, a little bit more about the system and how things progress too, and removed part 2. All right, I'm going to invite Alondra back up here, and I believe she is going to facilitate the taking of a test. No, a poll. We are going to do a quick poll.
That was great feedback on the removed video, guys. Thank you so much for your participation too. Great conversations. Okay, so our next activity is the ages and stages, and with this activity we will be doing a poll. So when we launch the poll, it will just pop up on your screen and it will ask you, it'll be 10 questions and you get to choose which answer goes along with that question. So just do the best you can. If you somehow lose the poll, at the bottom of your screen, there is a little tab hopefully next to where it says share screen on yours. And it says polls. And if you click that, you can pop it right back up. So Ashley, if you will launch the poll, and we will give you guys maybe 2 to 3 minutes to finish the poll.
All right, before we actually show you guys the results of the poll and jump into talking about those responses, I wanted to backtrack just a little bit. We got some feedback that now I don't remember who asked the question. When you asked the question about if the children would it be normal? Oh, I see it now, it's Allie. Is it common for one child from the sibling set to be placed in a different place? We got some more questions about that and whether it's normal for maybe one child to be removed from the home or both children, or is that what you were asking, Allie?
That's what I was asking. I thought it was strange that, I mean, while we didn't see like actual abuse necessarily take place with the toddler, I thought it was strange that he stayed.
So, and that, again, unfortunately, I can't say, well, like, yes, this always happens or this never happens, because as with most things that we talk about, it's case by case basis and it will just depend. But we did want to, after we got some of that feedback, talk to you guys just a little bit about that. And it can happen that in a home, only one child is experiencing the abuse or neglect, and it does not affect the other child in egregious ways. I'm not going to say it doesn't affect them, because it certainly does. We know that if anyone in a home is experiencing trauma, everyone in the home is experiencing trauma. But it may be that they're not at imminent risk of physical harm or of being further damaged. So they may only remove one child from the home. Again, it could be needs-based, that the child is being removed from the home because the family cannot meet their needs, but they can meet the needs of another child in the home. So it may be true that they remove one child or two children and leave one in the home, or some combination of that where one child stays in the home and another leaves. So yeah, if you ask a question and I won't say we, because it wasn't actually Alondra, it was me that misunderstood. But if I misunderstand that or we misunderstand that, please don't hesitate to ask again, raise your hand or put it back in the chat box, because we want to be able to answer those questions. And if you have it, chances are someone else has that question as well. So I'm sorry I couldn't give a yes, no to that either, but hopefully it provided a little bit more feedback. I think we have another message in the chat. Alondra, does it pertain to this? Let's see. Terry, I think you might be still in our thunder for part two. She's exactly right, though. I didn't want to give it away. But yeah, he is actually removed as well. He just goes to a different placement. So that's why I went in that direction of different placements. He was removed as well, but he's not in the same home as our little girl is. You're right, Terry. All right, I'm going to have Alondra come back and we'll share the results of that poll and enter into some discussion about that. And again, we do want to open the floor for this. We are not going to share the screen again right now, because we want you guys to be able to see each other and interact with each other as much as possible as we discuss these results.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay. What did we put for question number 1, which was, when does the child begin to understand the word no? So does somebody want to share what they put and why they chose that?
Everyone's afraid to be wrong now.
And please don't be wrong. Please, you will not be wrong. I did not know a lot of these.
I can't raise my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just put that age group because I have 2 boys, and that was the age that they learned no. I mean, they kind of knew the difference in our tone. When we would tell them no, they would stop doing something that they were doing. So.
What age group was that? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
It was I think the 6 to 12 month.
Okay.
I can't. There's my poll results.
Yeah, I think that's the most results that we got back was 6 to 12 months. And actually it is 12 to 18 months. That is when toddlers begin to understand the word no. So it becomes recognized by them with symbols and repetition. And like you said, when they change tones, they recognize that change in tone in the caregivers as well.
I'm going to jump in again. Andrea, you're not totally wrong either, because we do often see with much younger children that they respond to the look on your face and the tone of your voice when they're even like from birth to 6 months. They can respond to negative feedback, like if you if you make a mean face and you shout no at them, they can respond to that rather than the actual word no. Also, in my experience, I have 3 boys and a little girl. Girls understand it earlier and are much more dramatic about it.
I will soon learn that. So at the age group of 12 to 18 months, toddlers at that age use 10 to 20 words, including names, combinations of 2 words such as daddy or bye-bye. So our next question, when does the child begin to fear authority figures? Does anybody want to share why they chose their answer? And you won't be wrong, I promise. Oh, well, or we can call. Let's see, Pooja. What was your answer?
I honestly can't remember what I put, but I know it's the first one or the second one, but I chose an earlier age group.
Okay.
Just because I feel like they start recognizing like who their parents are and whatnot, but I don't know the exact like the fear factor of the question.
And you are right. They add a certain earlier age, they start recognizing faces and they start recognizing who their caregivers are. So they actually begin to fear authority figures at age 12 to 18 months as well. Okay. So our next question is, when does early sex role development begin? And a lot of your responses was 3 to 5 years of age. Somebody that chose that response, do you want to answer why? Maybe you guys can either raise your hand or unmute if you'd like.
I'll raise it in my video.
Okay.
I chose that again just from my own personal experience. I feel like that's when my boys realized they had penises. And one incident, we were in the bathroom at Walmart and they were young enough they had to come in the stall with me and yelled out as loud as they could, "Mommy, where's your penis?" I'm like, okay, gotta explain to them, girls don't have penises. So that was just when they started questioning, was in that 3 to 5 age group.
Alondra's looking at me and laughing because my daughter is 2.5 and she has figured out that she does not have one and likes to go around telling everyone what she does have. So she is more than happy to like sing little songs that go something like "My has a gina." So we want to make it lighthearted because this can be such an uncomfortable topic. I think, thanks Sha for adding that. Can you explain early sexual development? What is the definition? So when we talk about that, first I'll say that when I was working through this and creating this poll, I was talking to my husband about it, and he was like, well, that's good to know because our daughter bounces back and forth from wanting to wear boys' clothes all the time. And early sexual development actually happens
at age birth to 6 months, believe it or not. I was very, very shocked when Ashley was talking to me about this, and I was like, oh my goodness, I did not realize that.
So again, this is a reminder that when we talk about sex role development, we're talking about the role. So as early as birth to 6 months, babies are beginning to observe what we do and how we do things. So it's not necessarily, although, and we bring this up because when families, especially children who are in foster care, when they begin to see behaviors that are characteristic of what they believe are older children and much younger children, they tend to think that the child has been sexually abused or is being sexually abused. Also, when children do things like masturbate or try to experience some of those sexual type things with other children, especially when they're really young, like preschool age. They think, oh my goodness, this child has been sexually abused. And while it can be an indicator that the child has been sexually abused, that is not always the case. Looks like we're getting some feedback that Amy has a question.
I just remember a really interesting study that was done where there was a young mom who took a baby in a stroller to a mall when they were all enclosed and popular. And the baby was dressed in a real frilly girl outfit. And as she walked through the mall, people would stop and comment on what a sweet baby, how cute she is, how pretty she is, all the words that typically get, all the adjectives that usually go with a female infant. And then the mom took the same baby into the bathroom and put on a little football jersey and some socks and a sweatpants and walked the same mall. And the comments were, oh, what a strong looking young man he is. Oh my gosh, he's, you know, a completely different language was used to describe the child based on the assumption that it was a boy or a girl by the clothing. So, you know, it starts real early, even when we think, oh, we don't want to raise our kids that way. We still do.
Absolutely. I think Robin has probably had some of the similar experiences that I've had, because she has 4 boys and a girl. I have 3 boys and then a girl. And when my daughter tends to wear whatever she wants because she's strong-willed, and sometimes she dresses like a girl and sometimes she dresses like a boy. And when she dresses like a girl, people are like, you finally got your girl. How good for you, finally got your girl. And when she looks like a boy, they're like, oh, Mom, you must be exhausted. It must be so hard having 4 boys. And I would say Robin has gotten one or both of those comments a lot too. And we see that, at least in our family, Amy, we do see that people comment or they respond to the gender that they have assigned to the child, whether they're right or wrong. So I think that's a really nice way of saying that, yeah, even when they're really young, we're imprinting on them our own opinions of what we're doing, and then also just the way we do things. You know, my daughter already likes to put on makeup because she sees me putting on makeup. Her dad doesn't wear makeup, but she sees that, so she thinks it's a thing that girls do, and she wants to do that too. She also likes to do plenty of the things that her dad does, but when we give feedback on that, we are helping to generate that sex role development. So not just that, but I'm trying to think if I had any other questions about, I don't think I had any other questions about gender or sex in the questions here. But we do see that gender and sex roles develop much earlier than people realize that they do. So when even really young children are masturbating or having sexual type questions and ideas, many people jump to the conclusion that they are being sexually abused. We always want to be aware, if we have any concerns that a child is being sexually abused, report it. But these things alone are not an indicator that they have experienced something really traumatic for them. It could just be their natural exploration.
Thank you, Ashley. All right. Our next question. Great conversation, guys. Thank you so much for participating. When does a child begin to carry on a conversation with themselves and or dolls? Anybody want to share their answer? See.
I just chose 18 to 36 months just because I know that's when my daughter started. And I also know it can, depending on development, it can be later in the 3 to 5 year range. But in my daughter's case and other kids I've known, that's generally the time. You know, that's when she was like naming items of furniture in the house and having conversation.
That's absolutely right, Peter. It is 18 to 36 months. They start asking, where's my, and would, you know, fill in a blank, either an imaginary name or maybe something that they keep calling over and over again. They also have anywhere from 450 words in vocabulary, gives the first name, holds up fingers to tell age, small little development things like that as well. Okay, so just to be sensitive on time, let's move on to our next activity, which is children's needs, and you will find that on page 6 of your binder. And for this activity, we will be breaking out into the break room. So Ashley is going to work on setting everybody into their own break room. So we'll flip to page 5. Or I'm sorry, page 6. So in your group, think about back to the blues case that you read for pre-work. So in this activity, you will be talking about completing the list of the needs of the child. So you will have 4 categories, and in your break room, you'll have one of the staff members in there to help facilitate you through this activity as well and engage conversation. Let's see. Okay, are we ready for breakouts? All right. I'm going to give everybody a minute to come back into the main group here.
Love that background.
Thank you. I'm glad you noticed. We like to be fun when we can. Okay, I think we have everybody back. All right, so if I'm going to call on essentially two groups, and if you guys can just share what your thoughts were on the social or the emotional and the physical needs on the Blues case. So somebody in the group, if they want to share what they came up with.
I think I was the only one who really had a chance to talk a little bit. Emotional was thrown my way, and one thing I was talking about was, you know, what's currently being addressed as far as the parenting is, you know, parenting classes as well as anger management. But you know, Deshaun is a young child who's sustained cognitive injuries, where there's going to be an ongoing list of evaluations. You know, it's not a guarantee that he'll be cognitively impaired, but at the same time, you know, it's going to be checking on every step along the way, because right now they're addressing medical issues. You know, they're not addressing emotional issues, and it's not that they don't need to be met. You know, and Robin mentioned, you know, parental bonding and stuff like that, which is incredibly essential. But, you know, it's, you know, the assessments as well as, you know, observations and things of that nature from outside sources, it's going to be an ongoing process for a very long time.
You are absolutely correct, Peter. They are going to be having several assessments going on to evaluate Blues, see how he's doing physically, making sure that he doesn't have any more injuries to him, and long-term care that comes along with that. Can we have somebody else share from a different group? What did you guys think about his physical and emotional? So if nobody wants to share, I will call on somebody. Romaine, you have been very quiet today.
I have a migraine, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We were just talking about like the long-term effects of, and not really knowing what those are going to look like yet, because the child is so young, and the, you know, the psychological effects later on, the mental health effects later on. There may be, you know, physical issues from, you know, a neurological standpoint that they, you know, would not be able to see just yet. So he's going to need a lot of care, and just being able to have him in an environment where he can be safe and be able to be loved and fed and clothed and have that shelter, and just, you know, meeting those basic needs, but being able to meet those extra needs that he's going to have.
Yes, that is a great answer as well, Romaine. Both of you guys are correct. As the child grows, they'll be able to make more tests and see how he is developing, you know, mentally and physically. Now, even though he is young, they're still able to have those connections be made. As the child grows, there are specific child development milestones that they meet, such as rolling over, being able to prop the their head up, things like that. Those are some of the physical developments that we would be able to assess on the child. And then, of course, with emotional would be, does the child want to be held? Does the child stop crying when they're held by a caregiver? Small things like that, that both of you guys are correct. You know, we'll have to wait and see how they are impacted long-term, but we can just assess those milestones as the child is only 2 months old. That was a great activity. Thank you, guys. Right now, we have decided to incorporate a 15-second do nothing break.
30 seconds this time.
Oh, 30 seconds. It's a 30-second do nothing break. So just enjoy it. Thank you, guys. Oh, 1 minute. Sorry. That's all right. All right. Thank you, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that little 30-second mental break. So moving on, we are going to do an activity, and it is just kidding. I'm going to invite Ashley to talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So